December 15th, 1967, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, 5:04 p.m., rush hour. The Silver Bridge is packed. Cars bumper to bumper crossing the Ohio River, commuters heading home. It's a Tuesday, cold. The bridge has been there since 1928. Nobody thinks about it. At 5:04 p.m., an I-bar chain link fails. A single metal component, corroded from the inside over decades, fractures without warning. The entire bridge collapses in under 60 seconds. 46 people die in the river, many of them still in their cars. That same evening, across Mason County, the phone calls begin stopping. Because for 13 months, from November 1966 to December 15, 1967, the people of Point Pleasant had been reporting something. A winged figure, grey-bodied, humanoid, enormous, seen near the bridge, seen near the river, seen watching the town from above. After the bridge fell, the sightings stopped completely. They have never resumed in Point Pleasant. There are two things to establish before we build a profile on this animal. The first, the Silver Bridge had been structurally failing for months before it collapsed. Engineers later found the fracture point had been growing for years. The metal was vibrating in ways invisible to human senses, producing low-frequency emissions as the structural stress increased. The second, large flying animals with highly developed sensory systems are among the most sensitive detectors of infrasound on the planet. We'll come back to both of those. Let's start with what the data actually says. The Mothman's sighting wave is unusual among cryptid reports for one reason above all others. It is temporally bounded. It begins on a specific date, November 12, 1966, when two gravediggers in Clendenin, West Virginia, reported a brown, human-like figure lifting silently from a nearby tree. It ends on December 15, 1967, the night the Silver Bridge collapsed. 13 months. Over 100 documented sightings. Then nothing. That is not how folklore usually works. Folklore doesn't stop. It adapts. It migrates. It grows. The Mothman of Point Pleasant didn't do any of those things. It simply ceased. The sighting geography is equally specific. Reports cluster in two zones: the TNT area, an abandoned World War II munitions facility north of Point Pleasant, and the Ohio River corridor, with particular concentration near the Silver Bridge. These are not random locations. The TNT area contains a network of underground concrete bunkers and tunnels, adjacent to a large wildlife preserve. The river corridor is a major migratory flyway for large birds. Now the physical description. Across the most credible core reports, the following characteristics are consistent. Height, 6 to 7 feet when standing or perched upright. Wingspan, reported at approximately 10 feet. This is the first number that forces us to do serious biological math, and we will. Coloration, described variously as grey, brown, or dark. Several witnesses specify it appeared almost featherless, more membranous than avian. Eyes, self-luminous red, described as positioned on the upper part of the body rather than on a distinct head. Multiple witnesses use the phrase "no neck," as if the eyes sat directly on the shoulders. Flight, described as rising without flapping. Several witnesses report it keeping pace with vehicles traveling at highway speed. The first witnesses, Roger and Linda Scarberry, estimated speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Sound, largely absent. The majority of sightings describe the creature as essentially silent in flight. No wing beats audible. No vocalization. That last detail is the one most people overlook. It will matter enormously when we discuss flight mechanics. Let's start with the number that seems impossible. 10 feet of wingspan on a 7-foot humanoid body. The largest flying bird alive today is the wandering albatross, with a maximum wingspan of 3.7 meters, roughly 12 feet. It weighs about 25 pounds. The Andean condor reaches 10 feet of wingspan and weighs up to 33 pounds. These are the upper physical boundaries of avian flight as we understand it. A 7-foot humanoid, even at minimal body mass, would weigh somewhere between 150 and 250 pounds. A 10-foot wingspan at that body mass is aerodynamically insufficient by every calculation we can apply to bird physiology, which means one of three things. Either the wingspan is larger than witnesses estimated, which is plausible given the conditions of most sightings, which were nighttime, at speed, and under significant psychological stress. Or the wing structure is not avian. Bird wings generate lift through feather surface area and shape. But pterosaurs, flying reptiles that went extinct 65 million years ago, used a fundamentally different system. A membrane stretched between an elongated fourth finger and the body, similar to a bat's wing. Membranous wings can generate lift at lower wing loadings than feathered wings, meaning a given wingspan can support more body mass. Multiple witnesses describe the Mothman's wings as membranous rather than feathered. That is not a detail people typically fabricate. Or the creature uses thermal soaring rather than active flight. This third option is the most biologically interesting. The largest flying animals in Earth's history, the pterosaurs, particularly Quetzalcoatlus, which reached wingspans of 13 meters and body weights approaching 250 kilograms, did not primarily flap to stay aloft. They launched, caught thermals, and soared. Active flapping at that body mass is energetically catastrophic. Soaring is efficient. Condors can travel hundreds of miles without a single wing beat. This explains the silence. The Mothman is consistently described as flying without audible wing beats. For an actively flapping bird of any size, this is essentially impossible. The mechanical sound of large wings moving through air is significant. But a large animal in a full soaring glide, riding thermal columns, would be effectively silent. The Ohio River Valley, particularly in the late autumn and winter months, generates thermal columns where warm air from the river meets cold air from the surrounding ridges. This is precisely the type of environment that large soaring animals exploit. The creature that witnesses described hovering silently over Point Pleasant was not flapping. It was riding the river's thermals. Now, the eyes. Self-luminous red eyes are the detail that most strains credulity. But we should be careful here. Tapetum lucidum, the reflective layer that causes eyeshine in nocturnal animals, does not produce light. It reflects it. In the headlights of a car at night, large eyes with tapetum lucidum can appear to glow intensely red or amber. Owls have extremely large eyes relative to their head size, positioned forward on the skull. Several witnesses, in calmer retrospective accounts, describe the eye placement as owl-like. The detail about eyes sitting directly on the shoulders, with no visible neck, is more interesting. Several large birds, herons, bitterns, retract their necks into their shoulders when perched or alarmed, creating exactly this visual impression. A large body with eyes that appear to have no intervening neck. At night, under car headlights, at a distance, a large bird in this posture could produce the silhouette described. But that alone doesn't account for the full description. What we may be looking at is a body plan that has no current living analogue. Large, soaring, membranous-winged, with forward-facing eyes that suggest a predator rather than prey species, and a sensory apparatus that we have not yet accounted for. That sensory apparatus is the key to everything. The Mothman is associated with disasters. This is the element of the legend that has always been treated as supernatural. The idea of an omen, a harbinger, a creature that appears to warn of or presage catastrophic events. We're going to treat it as a biological question instead. Many animals can detect what humans cannot. This is not folklore, this is well-documented science. Elephants communicate using infrasound. Sound frequencies below 20 Hz, beneath the threshold of human hearing. Their feet contain specialized receptor structures that detect seismic vibrations traveling through the ground from miles away. Before the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, elephants across Sri Lanka and Thailand began moving inland hours before the wave struck. They detected something. Seismologists later confirmed the earthquake that caused the tsunami generated infrasound detectable at enormous distances. Pigeons can perceive infrasound as low as 0.5 Hz. Dogs show measurable anxiety before earthquakes. Farm animals have been documented reacting to seismic stress 1 to 20 hours before a major event, depending on distance from the epicenter. These are documented, peer-reviewed observations. Animals with sufficiently sensitive sensory systems respond to structural stress events, seismic, acoustic, electromagnetic, before humans have any awareness of them. Now return to the Silver Bridge. The Silver Bridge failed due to a fracture in an eye-bar chain link, a specific type of structural failure that develops over years through corrosion and metal fatigue. In the months before the collapse, the failing metal was under increasing mechanical stress. Stressed metal vibrates. Vibrating metal produces sound, including infrasound, at frequencies humans cannot detect. The failing structure was almost certainly producing acoustic and vibrational signals long before the collapse, some potentially outside the range of normal human perception. A large flying animal with highly developed low-frequency hearing, spending time in the Ohio River Valley, would have been receiving that signal. What does an animal do when it detects a novel, persistent, low-frequency sound emanating from a specific structure? The same thing any sensory animal does. It investigates. It returns. It monitors. The Mothman was not haunting Point Pleasant. It was investigating a sound source that humans couldn't hear, emanating from a structure humans didn't know was failing. When the bridge collapsed and the sound source ceased, the animal had no further reason to remain in the area. The sightings stopped not because the creature disappeared. They stopped because there was nothing left to listen to. If this animal exists, where does it fit? Large soaring predators occupy apex positions in their ecosystems, not through aggression, but through range. An albatross covers thousands of miles of ocean in a single foraging trip. A condor's territory spans mountain ranges. The energy efficiency of thermal soaring allows these animals to exploit resources across areas that no terrestrial predator could access. A large soaring animal in the Ohio River Valley would have an enormous range. The valley itself is a natural flight corridor, channeling thermals along the river for hundreds of miles. The TNT area, with its abandoned structures and adjacent wildlife preserve, provides shelter, elevation, and proximity to a prey-rich wetland environment. The sighting density in that 13-month window suggests repeated return visits to a specific area, not random movement, territorial or investigative behavior, an animal that had found a reason to stay in one place. The almost complete absence of Mothman sightings outside that 13-month window, and the near total absence of reports in the decades since, tells us something important. This is not an animal that lives among people. It is an animal that was briefly, anomalously drawn to a specific location for a specific reason. When the reason ended, it left. That kind of behavioral precision, appearing, investigating, departing, is not the behavior of a supernatural entity. It is the behavior of a very large, very sensitive animal doing exactly what its biology was built to do, responding to information that the environment was producing and that we had no instruments to measure. 104 people reported seeing something over Point Pleasant between November 1966 and December 1967. They were dismissed, explained away. The sandhill crane theory was proposed, a large bird that had wandered off its migration route. It's a reasonable hypothesis. The sandhill crane has a 7-foot wingspan and red coloring around the eyes. It's possible. But sandhill cranes don't keep pace with cars at 100 miles an hour. They don't account for later waves of similar reports, including the cluster of sightings around Chicago beginning in 2017. Whatever this is, it has not gone away. It has simply found somewhere else to listen. Field log on this specimen remains open.